us this morning, you will notice on your table what are called Connect cards. It's just a long, thin sheet of paper. If you can, we would love for you to fill it out so that we can have some follow-up information. We'd like to let you know later on in the week how blessed we were to have you join us. And it's also a way to make sure for our regular attenders that, you know what, more information is up to date. So if you have changed phones, for example, Jim over here texted me the other day and said, hey, can you come for coffee? And I'm like, I don't know who you are. Because my phone is smarter than he is, and he forgot to say, hi, Sean, it's Jim. He just said, hey, you want to go for coffee? The answer is yes, but who are you? So if you have changed your phones, for example, the number one reason in this town why people have broken cell phones is they drop them in the toilet. Why, people? Why are you bringing your cell phone in the bathroom to begin with? Second of all, why are you using a cell phone over the toilet? I don't know. This is not an answer that I find in Scripture. However, my daughter has an answer. I'm going to ignore her right now.
Really?
Yes. So, if you have had to change information, maybe you have had to replace your phone, or maybe you have made your wife so mad that you have had to find a new address. I'm couch surfing over at Jim's house because after 17 hours in the truck, my wife said, Sean, I don't want to talk to you anymore. No, I'm kidding, I'm not. She's actually in Edmonton. Whew, see, she's couch surfing. So if you have changed your information, please put that down on the sheet as well, okay? Because it doesn't do us any good to try and contact you to fill you in on things that are going on if we have the wrong information. All right. This morning, we're finishing up a 3-part series called Sharing Life, Life Shared. This morning, the video is actually very pointed. The first one was kind of about how God actually wants to use you to reach other people. The second one was kind of a God is able to use you. Okay, because personal confession here, I can remember a time when one of the pastors in our church in Edmonton was preaching on evangelism, and he said, God wants to use you! And he pointed right at me. And I turned and I said, you better listen up because he's talking to you. Okay, confession time. It's good for the soul. Yeah, I totally deflected that one that day. I did not want to hear that because, you know what, evangelism, I got saved in a Presbyterian church. Their idea of evangelism is, you know what, Beth, you're going to go to heaven, but this person over here, nuh-uh. So there we go. You're saved, hallelujah, praise God. Done. It was rather frightening. They didn't do evangelism. They just kind of, not really sure what they did. Anyway, the fact is that so many times we have a problem believing that God wants to use us. We take a look at the harvest field and it's so big. We take a look at the news and we hear some of the problems and they are just too many. You know, what can I possibly do about the fentanyl issue in our country? What can I possibly do about the people starving to death in some countries right now? What can I possibly do for our brothers and sisters in Afghanistan who are constantly facing attack from the Taliban? What can I do for the family down the block who are going through divorce? What can I do for the kid whose parents work all the time and leave them home alone? The problem seems so big and so many and so varied. What can I possibly do? And so when God comes along and he says, hey, I want to use you to reach the lost, we go, nuh-uh. I'm not that super disciple. I'm not the Apostle Paul. I'm not Billy Graham. How could you possibly use me? Oh, you weren't talking to me. You were talking to Mark. Whew. And we get discouraged. And then we look around and we go, hey, Gabe, how come you're not inviting anybody? But have I I ask myself when I look in the mirror. Hey, Walter, how come you didn't lead anyone to Jesus this past week? Do I ask myself that question? No. And it becomes the epitome of what Jesus was talking about when he said, before you point out the speck in someone else's eye, pull out the plank from your own. Is it any wonder the world calls us hypocrites when we can be really professional about church? We can be professional Christians. Hey, we do it on Sunday and we do it well. But what about Tuesday? Oh, no, Tuesday's kind of my day off. Really? Aren't you glad God doesn't take a day off? He's the one who spins the world on his finger, kind of like a basketball. What would happen if you went, nope, today we're stopping? Wow. So this morning we're watching the third video in the series. Okay? This one is a little bit more challenging. It's a little bit more pointed, but there is still some discussion time. So, that being said, Mike, I'm going to ask you to come and join this table right here. Annie, I'm going to ask you to go and join EK's table at the back. I know, I don't care. Mark and Kathy, slide over as well, please. And I'm going to come and join this table right here. And center table there, you're pretty good. I think you got 4 folks. So there is some discussion, okay? There will be a bit of a video clip. Then there will be a pause. And that will be time for discussion. 3 of those. It's a bit of a different format this morning, but that's okay. How many of you know that change is not a bad thing? It's true. Change is not a bad thing. It's neither good nor bad. It depends on how you use it. But it is something we tend to be very scared of, and we shouldn't. So yes, we're using a video this morning because, very honestly, it was talking to me too, pointing out some things that I need to work on. And it's hard for a pastor to lead people to a certain place if he isn't going there too. And so I need to walk with you in this because I've gotten pretty comfortable in certain things too. So Annie, could I ask you to turn on the video for me?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
There was a big idea from our first session in the series. It would probably be that God is already at work all around you, transforming lives. And if there's a big idea from the second session, it might be that God's inviting you and I to join him in that transforming work. Now we're in our third and final session, and the big idea for today is around what practical actions you can take to respond to all of this. We want to look at day-to-day activities that you can do that will set you up to engage in this work God's inviting us to. And I'm so glad we're talking about this because it'd be such a shame for us to just talk around ideas of reaching others without actually looking at how to do it. I am aware, though, that whenever we talk about practical steps to sharing our faith, that it can sometimes feel like formulaic or impersonal instead of relational and loving. So instead of seeing this all as like a formula, the practical actions we want to explore in this session are more like a way of living that can position us to step into the work God's doing around us. Before we get going, take a few minutes as a group to talk about this.
All right, so there's the question on the board. Now in 2 weeks from now, we are starting a group, what is called Alpha, here in the church, during the Sunday morning service. Alpha is a time where we are going to investigate the basics of our faith. Now, some of you may go, I already know all of those. Maybe. But you know what? The fact is that when you're out on the street and you're talking to someone about Christ, they're bound to ask you one of those questions that you kind of go, wow, look at the time. You know, I should really go. We can pick this discussion up on a day when you have a different question. They ask a question that you should know the answer to, but you know what? A lot of times, we're not sure how to answer them. Okay? So we're doing Alpha, and it'll cover a lot of those basics in a way that isn't confrontational, isn't in your face yelling at somebody because, hey, I know the answer to this question, you really need to know it. So around your table, what comes to mind when you think about practical steps to sharing your faith? We're going to talk about that just for a few minutes. Go ahead.
First thing he said about we have to understand that God's
I remember when I used to some years ago, when they are discussing some chickens, and I know this
for the most part, we're visiting my mother, we don't understand.
you gotta be able to get some
So if you guys want to use them,
is it pastors,
cooperate in these questions that they have, then we are trying to settle and answer the question that
there could be any form of opinion, no, that they don't think we try to engage ourselves. Let them know not to say
that's the way I found it. I should have wrote my daughter this morning. Just knowing. What we really believe. turn off the computer. We cannot,
Uninstall the software.
we cannot
Put it back again.
truly.
Does it work?
Actually, we're not. We don't believe it's for ourselves.
Yeah.
There's no restore compromise and keep some division between us and Father and Jesus came to command us complete. And through Christ, God was there to connect us. We don't believe it's like any she's out there. She's essential. Always out there.
Yeah. I remember like on the 6th mission.
All right, folks. Go ahead. So, tell me some of the things that jumped out at you at your table. Kathy, how about your table back there?
Being too formulaic with it, like, I've got to whip the card out so you can get the
Yes.
correct response.
Absolutely. Yep. Okay, what else? How about at this table?
Prayer, listening to God, doing what He says, being open to the Holy Spirit.
Okay.
Just making that first step.
Yeah. And you know what? They're valid, very valid. Annie, how about your table?
Our table was talking a lot about how the first thing you have to do is lead by example, with the practice that you preach, so that people will notice there's something different.
Okay, good. Lee, how about your table?
Pretty. What came up about relationship, we need to develop relationship with people, and we know that knowing that God is speaking to someone all the time, and so we're more trying to hear the question they have and tell them an answer they haven't asked yet, and so God is working. It's for us to work with Him and not be all tight about how we're going to interrupt this person's life with my message here. The message is part of your life. It's being there for them in a sense, being a friend.
One of the things that Donna pointed out is, up on that question, it's the word practical. The question that always comes up, how? How do I enter into that conversation? How do I build that relationship? We don't want people to simply think, oh yeah, oh no, here comes Grace, she's on her walk and she's going to try and convert me here on the corner. Oh God. We don't want people to feel like projects. They have to be people. But how do you enter into a relationship with people when, very honestly, our lives are already very full? We already have relationships with people. We already have family and friends and church family. You know what? There are only so many people that you can actually be in relationship with before somebody starts losing out. So how? Annie, we're going to be starting up again here right away. So, practical steps. Sometimes, though, I think when the question of how comes up, and the related one, who, I think sometimes we use that as a crutch. We don't really know how to answer the question of how, and we don't really want to answer the question of who, and so we kind of go, well, you see, I guess I can't. But that's what this one's going to talk to. Go ahead, Andy.
I was on staff at a large church, and I loved what I did, but I had a crisis one day, a normal day like any other day, when I came home and my wife had just started inviting neighbors over to share a meal with us. She rolled the grill out, and as people were coming home, she just said, "Why don't you come over and we'll share a meal together?" And all of a sudden I realized all these people that surrounded me, I didn't even know their names. I was a professional Christian. My job was to help a church get to know the city and the neighborhood, and I didn't even know the people that surrounded my apartment. And as we got to know them at that meal, we started to share life with these people. People who were going through domestic violence things and dealing with addictions, and folks that had all kinds of problems. When I was used to getting into my car to drive to do church ministry stuff, when there were needs all around me. And in a sense, we became the pastors of that apartment complex. So when we went to move to Denver to plant a church, we decided we want to take the Great Commandment literally. Not figuratively, literally, which meant we needed to know the names of the neighbors and people that surround us, to love them, to serve them, to pray for them, and, well, that shaped what became our church. Everyone that came with us, we made a commitment to spend time in our front yards, to share meals with people in our homes, to hear their stories, to pray for them, to pray with them, and learn how to live life together. And in this, I think we took the Great Commandment literally, to love God and love your neighbor as yourself. And your neighbor actually includes your literal neighbor. And so that small step opened us up to actually thinking about how cities might change. What if everybody took that seriously? What if everyone that says that they follow Jesus took that seriously? But what if everybody took that seriously? We might just see a ripple effect in every city that we're in. Instead of trying to do everything out there, what if we started right in here? The step to take is really simple. It requires walking the 20 or 30 feet and doing this really complicated maneuver, which is knocking on their door and then saying, "Hi, I live over here. I don't know your name. I've not had a chance to meet you." If you're new in a neighborhood, it goes better. But if you've been there a while, it can be even more awkward. And here's why. Because you probably knew their name at some point. Like you met them at one point and they've just become like cat lady, or hey, what's up, dude, bro, man. And you have these super shallow conversations that usually revolve around the local sports team or a restaurant that came to town. And you have to go over a little speed bump, this little teeny speed bump that's awkward, where you say, "I know I should know your name. I am so sorry, but I can't remember." And then my recommendation is that you write it down. We use a little tool that we call Block Map. It's effectively a tic-tac-toe board. Just on your refrigerator, make a tic-tac-toe board and just write the names of your neighbors. And that way when you look at them, you can start to remember them, and who knows, you might even start to pray for them. And who knows even further, God might actually begin to break your heart for them. When you get to know someone's name, something strange happens in our mind when we begin to connect to their story. And we begin to remember parts of their story when we remember their name. And it's the most dignified thing we can do for others, is to know their name, capture pieces of their story, as a means of demonstrating we care about them. And I think that's what Jesus asks us to do. He asks us to love people. And by this we show that we're his disciples. That can start somewhere simple, by knowing their name, capturing a bit of their story, and then reflecting that back to them. And if you already know the names of your neighbors, here's another step you can take, which is maybe you share a meal with them. Here's a guess about all your neighbors. I have a guess. They probably eat food. Another guess. They probably eat food around the same time you eat food. And if you make a little extra food, and you let them bring some of their food, you can actually share a meal together. And sharing a meal together is one of the most intimate things you can do, and it's actually one of the most simple things you can do. I believe that evangelism, moving forward, will be mostly lived out and worked out through hospitality. That people will open their homes and open their lives to connect with others in a way that they can see the life of Jesus and the hope that God has in their lives by just looking at them, by sharing space with them, by sharing time with them. This is what Jesus modeled. I mean, if you take the parties out of the New Testament, you don't have a New Testament. If you take meals and the connection that we have around food from the whole of the Bible, you don't have a story of the Bible. You take the answer. That's a big thing to take away from the Bible. Sharing space and time together where we open our hearts up, we ask questions, and we live life together is best done around food and around a meal and in a place where people feel welcomed. We all have a part to play, and God is so well pleased to use every single one of us if we're willing. If we say, God, use me, he can use you no matter what.
Right. He didn't make it sound that hard, did he? I like the guess that your neighbors eat food.
It's our fault.
All right, so around your table, you see the question, go ahead, chat.
So I started one of the early novels, and I was built 3 ball in marching, and I could see it went out the office. So about a year old, back to the years ago, now it's routine. We got invited to a block party. I used to practice. He and his brother and another guy said, But then there's a guy called Kevin, he's, so they changed their mind. So we talked, we got society. We can hold it in
Inclusive.
We had a great time.
But I
And
don't
then
know.
we got to, what do they call it? The word bowl, you know, big.
I definitely will.
Actually, it's the knuckle or piece of that out of the and it takes quite a few for being like a walk. But it, so like they was the championship.
Society.
They have 3 years coming.
Nice book.
One day, 3 other teams. So anyway, they got that up to the first one. Next year, we all got involved in that. We got involved like for example, people right at the end.
All right, folks, what stood out to you? Back at Captain Sabre.
We were talking mostly about how diverse societies make it difficult to do that particularly. Even walking up to somebody and knocking on their door, you don't know if they speak the same language, if they're from the same culture, you know.
It's
that
scary,
kind of stuff.
isn't it?
And also talking about how, you know, like Mark knows all of our neighbors by their vehicle, I know them by their dogs.
Yep. So there are no crazy cat ladies on your street. Okay, I got it.
No, that's me.
Okay. How about here, Andy, at your table? Oh, sorry, EK, you had something. Go for it.
Yes. And, well, talking about diverse nature of the society. Like talking about maybe sharing dinner. To be honest, I am the type who is not open to eating any kind of food that I don't understand. Especially, you know, like, now, Pastor, you have the privilege of first of all looking at the food and knowing how it looks like. But I wouldn't know the food unless I give it a taste.
Brother, I got news for you. Sometimes you see it and you don't want to taste it.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I don't have that luxury, you know.
I don't know. I think you're actually doubly blessed. You have the smell and you get the taste, and you don't have to worry about what it looks like. Because there are times where, you know, my wife will go, I'm trying something new, and it's like, oh no. And I see it and I'm like, and she looks at me and goes, just try it. And I can see the look on her face which says, or else. So but no, I know exactly what you mean, EK. That, you know what, different cultures eat different food.
Yeah.
I remember the first time that I was invited over and a family was going to serve sushi. Sorry, but raw fish?
Yeah, raw fish.
How do I know you didn't just take that out of the fish tank and put it on my plate? Yeah, there definitely are some fears that come into play. Dennis, how about your take?
Well, for me personally, I was just sharing with these people here that I think it's really important to write the person's name down,
Yep.
you know, and remember to associate it, like EK, that's real easy, but if you get somebody, Mohammed, whatever, 27 letters, it's probably a good idea to write it down and remember the name, because I think it's important that you be able to talk to the person and say their name, and perhaps in your own limited way, pronounce it correctly too. Writing it down, sounding it out, whatever.
Pronounce it correctly.
Yeah, write it down phonetically, because if you write down EK, you'll try and say Ike.
Yes.
And it's not. Yeah, no, but that's true. I mean, whenever I'm over at Tim Hortons and they have a new staff member, I ask them how to pronounce their name. Because, I don't know, I don't like it if somebody mispronounces my name.
Yeah.
Okay? How about here, Mike, your table?
What we're discussing, is just invite people over.
Yeah.
And we don't do, I know here's the time that we used to, but we don't anymore. We don't invite people over.
Yep.
Get them over, get a meal, we can share.
Yep. It's a hard first step, isn't it? Well, Micah and I were talking the other night about trying to get together with a family that we know here in town. Trying to get their schedule and our schedule to match. Man, that's not easy.
Paul was mentioning where he's from. Everybody knows everybody. I'll let you tell it.
Yeah, this is in my community, back home, in the village. So everybody know each other.
Yeah.
My son goes out and misbehaves because you know you don't even have to wait. You can take care of my son for me. This because we know each other.
Sure.
It's a cultural thing here. It's different. You know the neighbor. You know the neighbor.
Yeah. Yep. Where you're from, it takes a village to raise a child.
Exactly.
And here, we have a child who has no village.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
Yeah, we have, you know, I heard somebody describe it the other day who said, we drive out of our garage, we go into underground parking at work, we go into an office, we have lunch in the office, we get back in the car, we drive home to go back into the garage, to go back into the house. We don't see our neighbors.
Yeah.
And the enemy has been very, very strategic in removing community, because life is done in community.
Yes.
And so we need to find a way to break that mold. Lee, tell us about, briefly about your experience.
Yeah. Just through an interest, I developed a relationship with the man on the next block. I can see him because there's no house built there yet in the one space, and he's been building houses, so I kept going over and tell him to come for inspection. And he's seen me sitting on my deck, and sometimes he comes over and has a coffee or just to visit with us if he notices we're on the deck. So we built this relationship recently. Him and his wife and another couple organized the block party on their block. So it's not my block, it's the block I can see next. But I'm always watching these people. They invited us to their block party. And about 30 people came to it, and we all brought some food. We started about 5, and we ate at 6, and we were there till 9:30, I think. 9:30. It was supposed to be over by 9, it was 9:30, I remember. When we went, there were still some people visiting, they were starting all this getting dark. We had the best time. Then we started playing games. They had this game I'd never played before. It's called, I forgot the name of it now, but it's kind of almost you're throwing a ball at, you're throwing these horse knuckle things at it. And they bounce all over the place. Like, it was men against women and kids involved. That we got to know a lot of people. We made a point of visiting every person, and Dawn was able to recollect 30 names to write down when we got home. Like, I could never do that, but she did.
So, with all of this, it's just about building a relationship, right? Annie, we're going to get started here in just a second. EK, go for it.
Pastor, before you go to the next video, just can I make a disclaimer, please?
Go for it.
Okay. The disclaimer is, please, nobody should mind what I said about food. I still love food.
Oh.
So don't think, hey,
EK, we have seen you eat. We know you like food.
Okay, just to let you
Just,
know.
okay. Okay, Andy, go ahead.
My mom left when I was a baby, and my dad raised me until I was 4. My dad thought it was best for me to go to Germany to grow up with his sister. I remember the other day when we went to the airport, and I remember holding on to that gate because I didn't want to leave. I hated my father for leaving me. Sending me somewhere I don't know. When I was 7, I got abused from a neighbor. I hated God. I hated him for all the stuff I went through. And I was like, oh, if you exist, why would you do this to me, you know? I was looking for a nanny job, and I saw Stephanie's post.
You know, I just put an ad out there for a nanny.
And so the day that she walked in, we kind of just thought, you know what, this makes a ton of sense. Let's just do this.
Matt was on the phone and he was like, yeah, we would love to have you as Riley's nanny, and we would welcome you to our family. And I was like, what? This is crazy.
We have so many people coming through this house, and she would ask, like, who are all these people? You know, they babysit your kids, and they come over here and play with your kids, and like, why would they do that? So, oh, they love our kids, you know, we're really involved with each other, we love each other, we're all part of the same community. She said, well, I'd love to check that out.
So Matt and Steph invited me to church. It was weird because I'm like, never went to church ever. They were just so nice and so welcoming, right? And I was like, oh, this is like a different experience. Like, I like going there.
I think you were advertising for Alpha. Alpha was just coming back. And I said, you know, would be a great way for you to learn more about who Jesus is.
And I was like, okay, fine, I'm gonna go meet new people. And yeah, there was a reason why I went to Alpha. First night, I didn't really interact much with other people. I just listened and was quiet, I think, the first night. The second night, the third night, I felt like, oh, this is really powerful, right? I started engaging more and asking questions. I think it was the time when it was about forgiveness. It was just so powerful that, he forgave us for everything we did, and that he still loves us, right? How can he love me when I did so many stuff? How can I forgive myself? How can I forgive people who hurt me? I think that was the moment when the dog I had inside went away and the light came through. Yeah.
When you came home and told us that, you wanted to be baptized, obviously we were really excited for her. And when she asked me to baptize her, I was floored. It was really exciting.
Well, it was actually so easy. That's the other thing I can't get over is that I really did so little to introduce you. I mean, so much of it is you, just hearing what was true and then just running with it and diving in. Not everyone does that. But then I just feel like I'm getting so much credit for doing so little.
It's not little. It's a big, it's huge for you guys to bring me into your home, trusting me, being in your house and taking care of your daughter, showing me this oh man, this is this great love God has for you, you should come and experience it too, it's without you, I don't think I would have it now, so yeah.
When I first heard Jay Pappett talk about loving our neighbors, what stood out to me was how accessible it all felt. Praying for people by name, getting to know my neighbors, extending the invitation. It's stuff I can do. It's easy. Well, I know it's not easy, but it's easier than how I often make it. And I guess what I mean is these are the kind of practices that you and I can build into our lives right away. But I don't want you to feel like, all this pressure to do it all at once. Just start small. Take one idea and put it into action. Start praying for people that you work with by name, or introduce yourself to your neighbor, or invite a friend to church or to Alpha or to a meal at your home. I found that it's often these small steps that lead to unexpected opportunities. So whatever you do, don't do nothing. Take a step and see what God might do with it. This whole series was meant to help spark a conversation that can lead to new engagement with God and other people in your life. And the beauty of starting the conversation as a group like you've done is that whatever next steps you take, you get to walk them out together, which is way more meaningful and way more fun. And as you share your life and share your faith in Jesus with others, you will get a front row seat to see people's lives transformed by the love of God.
So I want to tell you a story. When Micah and I were away on this trip, we had to figure out where we were going to go to church. And we're at a restaurant on the Saturday night for supper. And there was a girl behind the counter, probably 16 or 17. Attractive young lady, dark hair, very, very blue eyes, but she looked like the weight of the world was on her shoulders. In fact, when she welcomed us into the restaurant, pointed out the table to sit at, it really looked like her eyes were almost dead. It was, come on in, table over there. We're sitting there, we're having supper, and my heart is just feeling heavy for this girl. So partway through the meal, I excused myself and I went over and I said, excuse me. I looked at her name tag and I went, Olivia, I know you don't know me, but can I tell you something that I feel God is putting on my heart for you? Okay. And so I did. I basically said, I just really feel that God is saying that you're carrying things you're not meant to carry. Now you're carrying burdens and hurts that God wants to take off your shoulders, but He can't do that if you're not willing to let Him. And she said, thanks. That was it. I walked away. Well, we found a church to go to the next morning. Went in, Micah and I were sitting down near the back. We're visiting, right? And guess who comes and sits in the row right ahead? Same girl. And so I got a chance to talk to her, and as we were walking out, one of the people in the church, he goes, "Do you know her?" I said, "Well, I met her at the restaurant last night." And he goes, "She used to come to church, but she hasn't been to church in ages. What did you say?" So I told him. He's like, "That's very cool. That's it." I don't know where that'll go. I have no idea. But there was an opportunity. I could have said, "God, this isn't my town. This isn't my restaurant. This isn't my church. There isn't a church here that I belong to." But sometimes God uses us. And I think the biggest thing about what they're talking about here is just simply saying, "God, I'm here. Use me." So let's just have a word of prayer. Father, I want to thank you that what you did not say in Scripture is, "Kathy, Mike, Jen, Grace, Donna, I want you personally to go out and save 5 people this next year. You didn't say that, Lord. You said, love God, love man. Tell them about me. It's really that simple. Father, forgive me for the times that I make it so complicated that it makes it easy to say no. And forgive me for the times where I have let my life get so busy that I don't leave room for interaction. I don't leave room to be a part of my village. I don't leave room to build community. Father, I like what the young guy said on the video. Do something. So help me, Father, from this point to make a commitment to doing something to building relationship. Maybe that'll just be interacting with the people I'm now working with at Home Hardware. Maybe it'll be interacting with people when I go and get a coffee at Tim Hortons. Maybe it'll be interacting with my neighbors by having a block party. Who would come to a winter block party? That could be kind of neat. We're Canadians, we can barbecue in the middle of winter. I mean, that might be July. I mean, honestly. So Father, help us to be courageous enough to believe you at your word. That if we tell others, you'll do the work. If we love others, you'll do the work. And if we love you, we'll do the work. We give you the praise for that, Lord, in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. So 2 weeks from now, we're starting Alpha right here. Alpha is based on sharing the basics of our faith, answering some simple questions, but it's also about having some food around the table. Are we going to have fancy meals? No, we're probably going to have something like muffins and things because after all, it is morning. You know, we're trying to have something that EK will not have.